Welcome to another episode of the Reboot Chronicles, a no-holds-barred forum with global leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, and CEOs about how organizations stay focused on growth and innovation in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean DeBias, coming to you live from Reviv's North American headquarters in Chicago, and we would like to thank you for joining us from around the globe today. This is Dean DeBias with the Reboot Chronicles. Today I am joined by Vijay Sundaram, who is the Chief Strategy Officer of Zoho, and we're actually here today at the Zoho conference in Austin, Texas. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Dean. Thank you for having me.
I heard your talk this morning was pretty insightful. Any tidbits you want to start us out with before we jump into the company?
One of the viewpoints we always take in the company is taking that long-term view of things. And a lot of that stems from uncertainty, economy, things like that. So it stems from the top. That's the way the CEO thinks. That's what he worries about. So he always worries about things that are 10 years out, that you don't even think sometimes is worth worrying about until you get 5 years into it. And then you realize
I've been there. Yeah. So did you give him like a product roadmap this is...
Yeah, so I teamed with my colleague Raju, and both of us run all the operations here in the Americas. And he focused more on our product side. I was talking about the big challenges that we all face, companies, consumers today, everybody, one from fundamentally a different type of economic uncertainty that we haven't seen. And so I want to talk about that and how we are trying to adapt to that. And the second thing is being the massive technological change, particularly coming from AI, and how we as a company are adapting. And I was hoping to get the customers to see how we think about that, right, and what worries us. It's not about what's coming to the market next year. It's where we will be there for you 10 years from now, and what do we need to do to ensure that.
That's usually my last question. So what does worry you the most now?
It's viability in the long term. We're a company that's been there for 27 years. We pride ourselves of being there for at least 27 more. Maybe none of the current players will be there, but the company will be. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that we build that kind of an edifice that will sustain itself. And it sustains itself because it's built on a self-sustaining model, which certainly starts with being able to make money, as opposed to just take money or depend on valuations. And the second part of it is to have a culture that's enduring and lasts over time.
And so tell me about your role, Chief Strategy Officer. It's probably a tenth of what you actually do. So what's your real day job?
Yeah, the history to the title is it just came up, and I spoke to the CEO one day. Said,
I like it. It's a nice
title. What title should he have? He said, how about that? And we hadn't even talked what work I would do. So that's how it came about.
Sounds like a startup, but...
Yeah, and I know him for a long time, right? So the title doesn't matter to either him or me.
Of course not.
So that was it. But what I wind up doing, I do get involved in aspects of strategy. One of the things I am leading in the company is our movement as a company into larger customers. We've traditionally started as a small business company, and now the market and our advancements in technology and everything else is taking us into bigger customers. So which is a different game, right?
Very different.
A lot of things to build up. So I'm spearheading that and driving the strategy on that front. That's sort of where I could put my anchor in the company.
Right.
And some of the other things, I run our global partner program, and we tend to operate very much outside silos. Mm-hmm. So, it doesn't matter what the problem is. It could be a finance problem. It could be a operations problem. We just get into it. And as one of the members of the executive team, I have anybody reach out to me for advice, and it doesn't even matter what the function is.
Exactly.
I spend a lot of time with the CFO because I have a finance background, and he and I are two people who can talk a lot about this stuff.
Yeah, that's usually rare in your role, which is great. So I want to jump into all that, but maybe just back up a touch. I think you're in about 180 countries right now. Yeah. Massive growth over the last 5 years for sure. And going head to head against some big dogs in the market, as well as some upstarts that are doing more niche products. But as you grow this fast, how do you maintain a culture for the company, or maybe maintain's a bad word?
Yeah, how do you sustain it and keep it going? You said this is what keeps you awake at night, right? That is actually the core of what it is. How do we make something that's continuous and stays over time, lasts over time, right? So that's the big part of it. And as a company, a methodology we've adopted over the years is a notion of coming up with particular ideas that then crystallize into what we call convictions. And those convictions become cemented a bit more. And so many times we have certain practices, and some of those practices become convictions. So I'll give you an example. We are proud to say that we put our employees first, although it's fashionable to say that you put your customers first, right? We obviously put our customers up there as well. I mean, that we wouldn't be in business if that weren't the case. But, employees aren't a fungible quantity for us, so we haven't laid anybody off. We won't. The CEO actually made a statement that he won't. And I would challenge you to find a CEO of a company this size who will say that.
And over the last few years, that wasn't a big deal, but now you guys stick out.
Before you see where the precipice is, to make that statement is a different story.
Exactly.
When you hit the bottom, it's easier to do that.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's an example of a value. So I always talk about the notion of loyalty being a two-way street. It's not just the employee is loyal to you; you're loyal to the employee, and the time you need to be loyal to the employee is when the going is rough, right? So,
which is usually never the case.
Yes, which is never the case. That's the time when everyone's pulling the plug, right?
Exactly.
So that's an example of a conviction.
That's very different, and that's over a long history.
That's over a long history.
You've been through a few dips, probably
which is
three actually. Yeah.
Three big ones. Which is the reason why we have middle tier of managers who actually make the company have been there for 20 plus years. The company is 27 years old.
Yeah.
Right?
Whereas most companies, the mid tier isn't doing much. Yours is they're doing a lot.
They're doing the stuff, and they persist. They persist over time.
Yeah.
And they are the people training the next generation of folks.
I think Salesforce is learning that lesson in a hard way right now. That how you engage the tiers and actually keep that, or not have a middle tier, is so important culturally. So it seems like you guys really do walk the talk. And how does that project to customers? Do they care?
It's
Does
interesting
it just
that you
ooze out of every presentation?
No, it does. It does. And without sounding self-promoting, I'll just give you some facts. When I finished my presentation this morning, we opened it up for questions. One of the questions was not a question, it was a comment. And from this gentleman who had been 30 years in the accounting business, working for one of the big firms, seen a lot in his life.
Speaking of soulless companies, yes.
And he said, what I like most about you guys is your culture. And I appreciate what you stand for and your culture. And actually, we don't say this because we want this reaction. We say it because we believe it, right? And we actually do it. I mean, accolades can come, but that's not what makes this, right? So we almost every time, I will get a comment like that. Or people, when I walk off a stage, people will say, we see your personality when you talk. And not just me, even someone like Raju, because we wear it on our sleeve, right? And you can't hide these things.
He definitely does, yes. Yeah. That's, I don't think I've ever heard someone's customer say that to a big dog and after a talk or in a Q&A. Because it's not something customers feel or care about. Do you think that's sustainable? Is that something that will always be part of your
I think, yes, absolutely.
transference, sustainable DNA, let's say,
absolutely.
into the market?
I think it is sustainable. That doesn't mean we will not face the risk of keeping it intact. We will. Yeah, as you grow bigger, you're going to have that risk. So we are very careful how we hire people and some other things. Like when we grow certain regions, we make sure that somebody who leads up the region is from the old school, and who comes in, who's a 20-year veteran, who comes into the region and maybe hires people that he needs to, he or she, but they become the glue over there.
Tribal leader.
And establish the culture.
Yeah, that's missing. I mean, a couple of things I teach at Kellogg is our Dancing with Startups program, but what I make fun of large corporations, I call them BFSs because they get big and fat and slow. And that's fine because they're multi-billion-dollar companies, but the connective tissue in that Venn diagram is irrelevance, obscurity, and decline, which is usually where they end up, and it usually points back to this. It's like it just doesn't scale unless they do certain things to reboot their people, their platform, their passion, and do a lot of the things that we do with companies. But to see an action is interesting, because you've as you look into go into enterprise, you've basically got all these little startups, still many of them well funded. I know there's been a clean out phase, and you're going up against the I won't even call them the big dogs, I guess. Everything from an ADP to to a CEO of Intuit we had on the program the other day. It's you have no shortage of people that want to kill you. I always ask the chief executive. In this case, it's you. It's like, who do you hate? And they say, we don't hate anyone. I'm like, okay, who hates you?
Yeah, everybody hates us.
And you've made this. You're doing too much, right? But the customers love you because what I've learned is you're bringing everything into one platform. And I'm not trying to tell you how great you are. Yeah. It's just most large companies, they want to buy more products from less vendors, right? But they don't trust them because anyone is pulling things together, something breaks. It just doesn't work that well at a certain point. Anyway, there's a question in here somewhere. It's how do you go up against competition? It's I've never seen such a diverse set of battlefronts at the same time.
This question came up to what you just characterized came up this morning too, and we made 2 points. We talked about how when you deal, first of all, we bring many more solutions in one place, right? So we can solve a bigger problem for the customer because we have so many more capabilities and so many more products. So it makes it easy for them to do business, and immediately hasten to add that you would doubt that as a customer because you would fear being locked in. And we won't lock you in. And I'll tell you how we won't lock
it's
you
another
in.
land and expand strategy.
Right.
You don't care about us.
Right. And we'll tell you why we won't lock you in. We won't insist that you sign 3-year contracts. We won't tell you that you have to buy this suite if you're greater than a certain size. We won't tell you need minimum number of licenses. All the games
These are all the BFS guys, by the way.
Exactly.
It's all in their contracts.
We all came from enterprise world. We don't want to do any of those things.
Yes. Interesting. And then the employees, their, let's just call it physical, mental shape is such a big part of that, which usually it's not. It's like, it's the software. It works. It doesn't work.
Yes.
I don't hear that at a fill in the blank. I'll stop naming names. It's not polite, but I love doing it. It's just too easy. But what are you doing, by the way, before we move on to partnerships and stuff, just to actually help employees, through this whole, the good news is you're not firing people like other companies have done, 10 grand at a crack type of thing. But just to promote work-life balance, mental health, things like that. Are you guys doing anything different that other companies can learn from? Because it seems like something's working.
I'll answer the first part. Whether they can learn from it is really up to them. I would say we do a lot of things different. I think, first of all, people have a sense of trust that the company is watching your back, right? And the big one is most people is...
Not watching behind your back, but actually watching
your back. Exactly. That's a good one. So it's more of... they know that. They know that the company is going to respect their role. And that fundamental fear that I might get fired or get laid off doesn't exist, right? Right. So that changes things a lot. So that's one thing. I'll bring out 3 or 4 things that link together and form that employee experience. The second one is we are very, I use the word anti-credentialist. So we don't look for people who come with badges or wear things on their sleeve, right? And so sometimes I interview people, I don't even know what degree they have. And I really don't care. I have several myself, but that's anomalous at Zoho. And so I think, so I don't really care because I've seen enough in life on who gets things done. So there's that ability and that faith that people have that I'm going to get rewarded for what I do and what I can make happen, and not because of something I was born with or happened to have had the good fortune to do. So that's like that's a second thing. Another thing I'd like to point out is people are not cast into silos. So we have people, I don't think you'll find another company where so many people have swapped and changed roles. You have somebody who comes
so critical.
Somebody will come in as a network engineer and they're a salesperson. or someone who comes in as
They rarely go the other way.
yeah, or like a pre-sales person, right?
Yeah.
And then decides that they want to do PR, And so we have any number of those examples, because if you have that first principle that I'm not going to follow people's credentials, that opens you up to this possibility that if you don't value that and just value how good people are, how good they are learning, you're going to remove those silos. So if you look, these are 3 good reasons why people tend to stay. And over time, that pans out.
Smart business planning, because credentials, whatever you want to call it, previous experience.
Yeah.
HR is flawed because it just puts people in this box and like, this is yours, this is mine, and then we go our career paths, and that's that should have stopped in the 80s. It didn't. It's still happening everywhere. Whether you can scale that up to 50,000 employees and beyond is always the question.
Right.
It's
I might actually argue that is the way you're going to scale it.
It helps,
because once you're anti-credentialist, you have a larger pool of people to bring in. And you're not hunting in the same places that everybody else is. You're not getting your people poached, So you actually...
you can't hire the control freaks either, because they don't like that environment. They're like, wait a minute.
Yes.
You all work for me. No, I don't.
Yes.
But I'll help you. Yeah. Oh, I like that. It's very refreshing. So I love what you do with the people. Let's shift to the my favorite topics, which is scaling companies more rapidly. To me, it's all through the connective tissue of partnerships and putting together the right ones that unnaturally can accelerate the company's growth. That's we do a reboot, and especially if you're going into enterprise, because you've got kind of like some of your competitors. You've got really small companies, right? Mid tiers. Talked to a few of them today, and then the up market, or as the big guys call it, you're in the down market, but you're not. You're in the middle. How do you feel about going into enterprise? Because they typically don't look at companies like yours. They're like, this stuff doesn't scale. It's fun, but I don't have 100 employees, Dean. I've got 100,000.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing we have going for us today that has nothing to do with us: the economy. People are looking for value. They're in
safety.
Safety too. They're looking at value. They've been skimmed enough, and prices are going up, which shouldn't be the case. So people are looking for value, and that makes them reconsider decisions, right? That's one thing. So that opens up the thing for us, because we get into a consideration set where we might otherwise have not.
Right.
We're also looking at the market, that middle market that you were talking about. So we're not going to go after GE, unless they come to us. And so we go after that middle market.
You could probably turn them around.
the middle market of companies where they're different. These are companies that are much more nimble than the large giants. They have extremely sophisticated needs. They are much like the large companies of even 5 years ago in terms of being global, multi-operational, multimedia capabilities. They require all the modern tools and so on. They have the complexity of the largest organizations, but they're more nimble. And they're run by people who are somewhat younger than probably both of us, and who weren't weaned on Oracle or anything else. So they don't even know what they're missing. So that becomes a place that...
So they don't have the old legacy stuff.
Yes.
I'm just trying to think of a couple company examples, private and public company. Like an Amway or a WWT. People have never heard of them, but multi-billion. Well, they've heard of Amway, but they're like $7 billion. The other one's more like 17. But the couple $1 billion range is beautiful market,
right?
Because I think they're underserved.
Right, absolutely. We have plenty of them in the U.S.
And many of them are using a lot of the small vendors now.
Exactly. Many of them are.
Even a lot of my board governance roles, we're using software platforms for board communications that knowing a lot about cybersecurity, I often wonder like what kind of certificates some of these companies have, and not to get into that, but it's like, how do you position yourself, against more of the big ones, and versus the little ones when you go into an enterprise situation? Is it like all things to all people, or when you go up market, is it like, well, they're just going to use a couple of our products?
Yes, you nailed it. So when we go up market, we get much more focused. We get focused in 2 or 3 ways. First, we started by looking at our current customers, and so
like by vertical kind of.
Yeah, the ones who are already big enough to make sure that we can serve them. We can make sure we can adapt our models to handle their size in a more full touch kind of a model, which normally doesn't exist in the small business, right? So So we practice on those customers. We have a very select set of products. We know that not every product is going to be enterprise ready. Any company that has 50 is not going to have all of them that's ready, but plenty are. A small set. We go with a small set, less than 6, right? And we focus on that because, and they're the ones that those are the products that tend to be things that enterprises want. CRM is a good example. And we do a great job competing against the biggest guys on that product. So we lead with that. We go in with that set. Our messaging is clear. We speak to that kind of language. And where we started this conversation, we bring we remove some of the things that vendors bring when dealing with enterprises. The nickel and diming strategy, the forcing them into contracts. Just make it easy to do business.
Take
kind of a
take
style.
that, Salesforce. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the style. So bring in the style.
And you're smart to start with something as malleable, I guess, as CRM, because people are willing to switch because it's usually not performing or there's whatever.
Yes.
Versus we're going to take over your accounting and billing system. Like,
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No,
yes.
you're not.
Yes. Exactly.
So how's it going?
It's going well. We
I mean, it's a different world. It's a different
it's
culture.
a different world.
You have to go hire. I mean, you know how Salesforce started. They
Yes.
took all the Oracle guys.
Yes.
You don't want to do that.
One thing we won't do is hire a bunch of high-paid sales guys,
Sales thugs, you
and
can say
unleash
it.
them on unanticipating customers. That's not what we'll do. So we will do it our way.
Smart.
We'll do it our way, and that's why we'll start with that middle market, which is going to be more of a sweet spot for us. And we'll bring our set of values. At the end of the day, we do business with humans. So if they appreciate your values, whether they're a big company or a small company. Right. And if they see that we are easier to do business with, we have their best interest in mind, we don't turn on the clock and start billing every time they do anything, that changes the way they look at us.
Yeah.
So we do have a challenge, though. We do have less awareness, to your earlier points.
Sure.
We are less well-known. And we have to build an enterprise ecosystem, as I would call it,
Exactly.
which follows the entire path of the customer from lead generation to lead nurturing and sales and account management, and loyalty and retention and support and all of that. That entire journey of the customer, and we've done that. So we've already done that.
And the expectation at the enterprise level is a little different.
Is different. So we've laid the teams down.
SLAs are a little different. Yeah.
Correct. Totally. And so exactly, our contracts going to look different. Our support terms are going to look different. Our people need to know how to respond and how to deal with different levels of individuals in an organization. So that's where we are. We've laid the groundwork, and now we're in the position of slowly going after that business.
Yeah, smart. And when you look at, so you just touched on everything going in enterprise, everything from product to distribution to partners. And so when you look at partnerships on the product side and partnerships on the channel management side, sorry, I'm putting on my strategy hat. On the product side, do you see a day where you'll just embed other people's products into the platform so the enterprise actually has more running on your stuff, but maybe you don't have to build everything yourself? It's a trick that a lot of companies do, but I'm not sure it fits here.
No, it doesn't. I'll tell you the way we'll do it. We will not deny customer choice. So, for example, today we introduced a product called Zoho Directory, which allows people to manage their entire suite of applications, our customers.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be just Zoho applications. So
they can plug anything.
They can plug in anything, single sign-on, all the kinds of things that you expect from a single unified system you can get. So we're not going to impose on them that you can't use the selections that you've made. But what we won't do is we won't buy products and integrate them into the Zoho fold, because that's going to destroy, we believe, it's going to destroy all of that thing about culture and people and everything else. And it's not for no reason that most of these M&As don't work.
Yeah, being an M&A guy, it's if you look at Google, most of their innovations come through acquisitions. If you look at a Salesforce, Oracle, you name it, all the guys, Microsoft, a lot of the stuff that's been plugged in have been through acquisitions, and some of them I've sold them. But some of them make it, some don't. So are all the products, or I don't know what you're up to, 30 apps going to 50, you call them apps. Have they all been organically built?
Everyone.
I didn't know that.
Everyone.
That is another major differentiator.
Yes, and it's that, that original philosophy was to do this. And you know this, you've been there long enough. And I've been a founder myself. A team that puts together a product is usually very small. It's like 10 or 15 people, maybe even less, that actually articulate a big proportion of almost any product. So this company was set up through multiple teams that were given a tremendous amount of autonomy. So there were no handcuffs placed on them. They were given autonomy. They even told at times, build your 1.0 and build your 2.0, we'll ship 3.0.
Yeah.
So that they had that confidence that they can make some
Or we'll
mistakes.
kill it. Either way. It's
Yeah.
like,
So that's why we've got so many products, because we've got so many teams that run like little CEOs
Yep.
and like little chieftains in that domain.
that's the Dancing with Startups program. It's like bringing it down to the small groups.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go out and grab other entrepreneurial groups to accelerate it even faster, or get some expertise, like AI,
Yeah.
for instance. But what's going on there with you guys? If you go out a couple of years, what's it going to look like? Will I just talk to your system and it's going to do everything for me, or?
Are you talking with respect to AI or in general?
For you guys, how it will affect your top products.
Okay. So we've
Generative is the latest thing. But
Yeah,
there's so much more in the
there's so
background.
much more. Like every company, fire got lit, right? And every company is running as fast as they can, and we're no different.
Well, I'm just glad you didn't latch onto metaverse, so that was good.
Yeah, as Raju says, we know the waves not to ride. So we
told me.
we pick things that we choose not to ride. And so this is one of them. AI is something we know. Our customers are going to want it. We see the reality of it. So our teams were scrambling like everybody else. We have more than, I think, 15 or 20 products that are already embedded something in some form.
Mm-hmm.
We will have a multi-headed strategy on that. We are building our own AI, and we've been doing it for years.
Mm-hmm.
But the LLM is something new for us, and we're going to be building that. We've been doing machine learning, and now LLM is something new, and we'll build our own, like any company our size. We'll also use stuff like ChatGPT and other third-party systems. We'll leave the choice to the customer, but we'll be very cognizant of our boundaries around privacy and let the customer know that when you work with Zoho's technologies, you're going to be in this, because we own everything, right? All the way down to the data center. You're going to live in this universe. And so we let them use third-party systems and not prevent them, but then let them know that if you send something to be translated to Google, it's going to Google, right?
You're going to mess up the system.
Yeah,
and
it's your choice.
The closed system.
Yeah, but we'll of course constrain it to that customer, so it doesn't bleed over to others.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. And what when you look at the growth trajectory, and if I'm looking out, let's say we're having a talk maybe 3-4 years from now. You could go 5 if you have to, but what's the company going to look like?
I think we're going to be bigger in many parts of the world as well. Mm-hmm. Like we are in, you said 150 plus countries.
So India and China, for instance,
yeah,
Asia.
India has grown very fast for us. Yeah. Massive growth. China's harder for a lot of reasons. We're growing in many countries. We're growing in Africa. We have 4 offices in Africa today. Most SaaS companies don't have one.
No.
And so we're growing in Eastern Europe. We're growing in Latin America. So we're in a lot of emerging markets. And so I see in 4 or 5 years, we're going to be players in those markets. And those markets have normally been left to fallow by some of the larger players. Like if you look at Salesforce, something like 69% of their revenue comes from America.
Yeah.
And for us, that's 38%. And so we've
and going in enterprise is like 0%. So you've got a double whammy.
Yeah.
Think you guys will ever be public?
No, we won't. There's too much
refreshing.
There's too much vested into this model. There's a lot of freedom. There's nothing we lack. Yeah. We generate enough money to fund our own research and everything else we need to do. So there's really no reason.
Excellent. Great talk. Really appreciate you taking the time. We know you guys have been having a good session here, and look forward to hearing more from you in the coming months and years. This is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. You've been listening to Vijay Sundaram, and he is the Chief Strategy Officer and many other things here at Zoho. I want to thank you for joining us today, and we will see you soon.